Right, guys, on to Jenner and vaccination. One students normally quite familiar with, but hopefully I can point out a few things that often are often missed. Um, Remember, Jenner's in the industrial period. Be very on top of which figure or which event are in which period, okay? Right, to really understand Jenner and his importance, you need to understand what smallpox is. It was just a huge killer. Um, Look at that statistic: killing 30% of those people who were infected, and there wasn't a known cure. So, that's a huge percentage. Again, symptoms: fever, headaches. You get the pus-filled blisters, which is where you get the name from. Even if you survived, you'd be scarred, left blind. It would devastate people. If you think about, some people ask historically how the Spanish were so successful against quite a quite a powerful empire in the Aztecs. Well, a lot of it was the diseases they brought, and smallpox wiped out the Aztecs and the Incas when the Spanish landed. Nobody really knew the cause, but there were huge outbreaks, and it was very problematic throughout this period and before. So, inoculation and vaccination. This is how we show progress, because inoculation was the initial treatment or prevention. Yeah, prevention. But vaccination improves on it. What's the difference? Now, inoculation means being injected with an extremely mild form of the disease. Whilst fighting the disease, the body builds up antibodies to prevent the same disease ever being caught. Vaccination, again, injection of another chemical or substance which kills the germ which causes the disease. So there's a sort of distinction there, and we'll go into how Jenner found that. Here's a good extract on Jenner, just his thought process when he was thinking about vaccination. I'll let you read it yourselves, but look at how he talks about the matter taken from a cowpox source. That is just the like the scab that you would take from it. He's testing to see how the boy reacts to it. He's quite healthy, and then he tests him with smallpox later on, and no disease follows. That's because the cowpox disease is protecting him from getting smallpox. So a harmless disease protecting you from getting a more harmful disease. Okay, what happened eventually? Well, the government did allow parents to refuse the vaccination. However, numbers of cases by this point were much lower. Vaccination just became part of people's lives. By 1978, it was declared eradicated. So if you're looking at, a statistic that really highlights why Jenner and vaccination is important, that's a great one: the eradication of smallpox. But we'll go into a little bit more detail on smallpox and inoculation. So inoculation, this is really pushed by Lady Mary Montagu. It was around for a while, but Lady Mary, she brings this to the UK. So when she was in Turkey, her husband, the ambassador there, inoculation was quite commonly used. Again, just another definition there. A cut was made in the patient's arm, threads soaked in pus from the sores of someone with mild smallpox were drawn through the cut. Again, the patient became ill, was kept in a warm room until symptoms disappeared. It's the idea that you're building up resistance against smallpox. So again, her husband, being the British ambassador there, she wrote about how important she believed inoculation was. She had her children inoculated. Many rich people started to get inoculated. But a big problem with it was people had different constitutions. So just because you infected one person with a weaker strain of smallpox and they survived doesn't mean the next person would. Like, that same kind of weaker strain could then kill the next person. In addition, whilst you're doing the inoculation, if you weren't careful, you could cause an outbreak, and it was really expensive. This is important going into vaccination. As you see the last sentence there, inoculators resisted Jenner's vaccination because they made a lot of money off inoculation. Right, so Jenner himself. So Jenner's encouraged to observe an experiment when he was studying in London. It's when he goes to, you guys are all really good at remembering the story, but when he sees the milkmaids were suffering from cowpox and none of them had caught smallpox, he decides to test his theory. The local boy, James Phipps, again, good name to have when you were talking about Jenner. He was given a dose. Again, this comes, we just had a look at the source of Jenner's own musings, his own writings on this. After 6 weeks, he was given smallpox pus, but did not become ill. Jenner repeated this experiment 23 times, again, a good number to have, and concluded that cowpox protects humans from smallpox. So this is part of his experimentation. Apologies, I thought I animated these to make them a little bit easier to come one at a time, but clearly didn't. So his findings, so when you're thinking about Jenner, we always believe he was so important because vaccination we use today, we recently used it with COVID-19. But initially, and this is like, when we're looking at Pasteur and Lister, the short-term impact wasn't great. John Snow being another one whose short-term impact wasn't great because people didn't take to it straight away. The same happened with Jenner and vaccination. His findings were rejected by the Royal Society, so he had to publish them himself. Mainly because he couldn't really explain why it worked. It just did, which the Royal Society weren't convinced with. The religious groups didn't like it either. They thought it was, some mad cow thing that was very anti-God. And again, the inoculators themselves resisted it because this could harm their income. But the government would go on to support Jenner, especially when they start getting more involved in medicine. They believe vaccination was more reliable. There had been an outbreak of smallpox due to inoculation, and this is when the government thinks, well, vaccination seems a little bit safer than that, so they start promoting it. By 1840, inoculation is banned and vaccination is free for children. So that's a key statistic to be aware of. And then the government makes it compulsory. That's really important. When you're looking at the long-term impact, the fact that it's made compulsory is significant. Again, there's still problems, doctors reusing needles, mixing up cowpox and smallpox, things like that, human error. However, by the end of the 1800s, so when we're starting to move into the modern period, smallpox numbers are massively dropped. Again, Jenner couldn't explain why it worked, so he couldn't develop other vaccines. But remember with Pasteur starts to develop these vaccinations for other diseases when he sees what Jenner has done. So link these together, guys, especially when you're doing your vision, kind of link across these key figures and how they influence each other. We've got a lot there, like Pasteur links to Jenner, links to Lister, John Snow links to Robert Koch. Robert Koch proving the bacteria of cholera. So really keep that in mind when we're revising, okay, guys?